Hey guys, it's Andrea Abert. I am a fan of activation, and you're going to find out why when I'm done interviewing my friend Kristen Cum. We've been friends since childhood, since our early teen years. Kristen is younger than me, and I shared activation with her, and it has transformed her family's life, her own life, in so many ways. So I'm going to cover four incredible testimonies that Kristen has with her family. And you guys are going to be crying because my friend Kristen is extremely resilient. She is the epitome of someone who embodies perseverance, trials, tests, and also doesn't accept no for an answer. I think that's huge when you're looking for your own breakthrough for healing. You don't accept no as an answer. You understand that the answer is out there. And I love, Kristen, that you continue to live life to the fullest, even though you had all these things that you were dealing with. So, you guys, this is my friend Kristen. And Kristen, I am going to turn it over to you. I love for you to kind of take us through where you were when I introduced you to activation because Kristen was in a horrible car accident about 14 years ago. And just can you walk us like just like in 3, 4 minutes, like what was the car accident like? What did it do to you? What was your quality of life? And then what you took as far as activation and what changed.
Okay, yeah, sure. Thank you for that introduction. I don't know that I deserve it, but thank you. It's actually 16 years ago now. So it's 14 years that I lived in pain, and then I've been activating for 2 years now, and all that has changed. So 14 years ago, I was T-boned by a drunk driver. And what happened was I ended up with what happened was I saw it coming at the last second. So I kind of turned like towards the light that I saw coming because it was at night. And what happened was one side of my spine ended up with all these tears along the different vertebra and the lower half of my spine. So I had bulging discs and torn discs. And then later on, I got also diagnosed with degenerative disc disease and arthritis that like set into all those like torn areas, I guess is what my understanding is. So I lived in an incredible amount of pain. And for the first year, I really couldn't walk. Like I needed help to get kind of going or to like walk up the stairs, and like moving around was very, very difficult. And I could do it. It was just really hard. And so um, I went to a few different doctors, and the specialist I ended up with wanted to just fuse my spine together. So just the lower half of my spine, fuse all the vertebra. And that was in an attempt to control my pain. But essentially what it would do is destroy my quality of life. He said I wouldn't be able to bend over anymore. I wouldn't be able to have, or I shouldn't have children because that would be very complicated with a fused spine. And I just totally rejected that. I was like, you're kidding me. I was 23 at the time. And I was just like, I have a very active life. I like to be outside and moving around. I plan to have a lot of children. And it was like a stubbornness. I did not want to let a drunk driver take that from me. Like that was just the sheer stubbornness of it. I was like, I'm not going to do all of that because of a drunk driver's idiotic decision. And so, um, and part of that was I was also breastfeeding my oldest. I had one child at the time. She had just turned 2, and we were still nursing. And they were like, well, here's some pain medication. Your baby is old enough. Just stop nursing. And I really wanted to nurse her a lot longer. And so I refused to even take the pain medication that they offered me, which looking back was sheer insanity. Like, how was I that stubborn? Because I remember how much pain I was in, and it was insane. So anyway, over it's like trying to condense so much into like a shareable story. There's so much going on that I could unpack.
Kristen,
But yeah,
your story is so intense. I think we can go for like an hour and still not get it.
right.
I'm
You
thinking, can
go.
you also share with them because you shared in another interview, like what did a day to day look like?
Mhm. Yeah. So at first there was just pain that was localized to my back. And then as time went on, it was like shooting pains down my leg where a leg would give out and I would just fall down. And sometimes I'd be out in public, like with my kids at that point. I'd just be like, what happens if I've got 3 little kids and I just like fall down in the parking lot? And things, things like that, where it's like nerve pain was getting worse. And then the pain would start to like move, where now it's like my whole lower body, like my hips would be so inflamed that I could hardly take a step. I used to say I felt like I was walking through like the ocean, like trying to walk through a body of water with every step. And and then it was getting to the point where like I would tell my husband, like, I'm in so much pain, but I can't say it hurts here. Like everything is just pain. My whole body is just, there's a word for it and I can't remember it, where it's like this sort of generalized sense that everything is in pain. Like everything is just screaming, you're in pain. And right before I started activation, the symptom that was newest to me was that my feet were going numb, like almost like neuropathy, like diabetic neuropathy, but I didn't have neuropathy. I don't have diabetes or anything. And I would get up in the middle of the night and go to the bathroom, and like I'd try to stand, and I couldn't feel my feet at all. And so and the other thing was that I was starting to be like just have to go to bed and lie down because I had so much pain. Like get up with my kids, get them breakfast, you know, get them changed, and then be like, now I'm going to lay down for 2 hours because that was a lot. And then get up a little later to make dinner and like then have to go to bed. And it hit me. I'm in bed like 20 or more hours a day at this point. And like if people invited us to go somewhere, it was like, oh, maybe we'll come. We'll see how I'm feeling. If I'm able to like be out of bed for long enough. And that was becoming, it just was ruling our entire life, you know?
Oh my, Kristen, like I hope you guys are realizing like this is the state she's in, and then this is what I get to do. This is what I have the pleasure and privilege of doing is introducing people to activation. And I don't know what is going to happen when your body is activated, but I know the science is there, the empirical data is there. I know it's going into your cells and into these miraculous healing systems, and your body is going to figure out what the problem is. And so, Kristen, when I introduced this to you, it was like I knew you were in this horrible state and I didn't know what this could do for you. But I explained what activation is to Kristen, and then you took it. So she took the Tri-Synergizer, which is our NRF2 activator, our NRF1 activator for the mitochondria, and our NAD activator. So those three together are called the Tri-Synergizer. That was all you were on, right?
Correct. Yeah. For the first year.
So what were your thoughts when I shared that with you? Like you had tried so many things.
Yeah. I had tried everything short of having my spine fused at that point or having like the cortisol injections and things like that. So I had very low expectations going in. And the other thing was compared to like the mountain of supplements I was on, it was so affordable that I was like, well, okay, I don't think it's we'll try it because I'm so desperate and I want to try everything. But I knew how many things had failed. And so I didn't want to have my hopes up at all. And so when I first started taking it, it was about 2 weeks later that I started to notice that when I would get up at night, my feet weren't numb anymore. And I thought, oh, that's nice. Like maybe I'm just having a good day. Maybe it's just a good week. And then it continued. And then I started to notice that my hips didn't hurt as much. I didn't feel as much like the continuous inflammation. And like it was almost like rewinding time where like the things that had come on, the last symptoms to come on were the first things to go away. And so it was slowly turning back the clock. And by about 3 months, I was like sitting on the floor playing with my kids. And I turned to my husband and I said, I just realized I'm sitting on the floor, like comfortably. I'm not in pain sitting on the floor because it just all my joints were so swollen and painful all the time. I wasn't doing that. And my older kids go, wait, that's why you don't sit on the floor? That's why you don't play with us on the floor? And I was like, well, yeah, everything hurts, but it doesn't now. And so by 6 months, I was having a massive reduction in all my pain. And then by like 9 months, I was mostly out of pain. I would still have those days where I was like, I'm having some pain today. And then I'd start to be a baby about it because I'm like, well, I'm getting used to not just constantly being in pain. I'd be like, man, what's going on? But then by a year, it's almost exactly a year. And all the pain was completely gone every day.
Wow. And I love this too because this needs to show you that activation compounds and compounds and compounds. If you had a horrible like house that was, you know, in a hoarder state, right? You may not notice if someone's cleaning it the first 24 hours, right? But if they keep coming and keep coming and keep coming, it will be like this immaculate home, and then they'll get to the basement and the attic and all the things, and that is what activation is doing in your body. So 1 year completely pain-free. One more thing I want to kind of touch on with the spinal injury and the back pain is you were caught between a rock and a hard place because you were being told by physical therapists and other natural, approaches like you've got to strengthen your back, so you've got to exercise. But you were in this vicious cycle of, okay, I'm in chronic pain.
Right.
When I do exercise, that sends me into more inflammation, and then I'm worse off than I ever was before.
Right. Yeah, I think people don't realize how much being inactive and having to be sedentary, whether for work or for health reasons, how much it weakens you. And so you're losing the ability to go back and do those things. Like even the things I could do 2 years in after my accident, I would lose that slowly and then wouldn't be able to get back even to that level. And so it was becoming very challenging because they're like, yeah, you need to stay strong. You need to train like an athlete. But it was at the point where every time I would exercise, it would trigger this, like, I described it as like a cascade of inflammation where I would say I go for a mile walk. And by the end of it, I can feel the inflammation like triggered. And I would have to go to bed for like 3 days or like up to a week. Excuse me. And I was in that cycle where I couldn't get past that to exercise.
Oh my gosh. And then this, now you're exercising just fine, right?
Yeah, so I'm still at a low level. Sorry, I just really have to cough all of a sudden.
No worries. You go cough, girl.
Um, so I'm in physical therapy now, and I just had a baby 3 months ago. So that's like whenever you have a baby, like you take a step back in your core strength, and that's what I need to regain is that core strength.
That's Your story is so phenomenal because you had one baby when this happened, and now Kristen has 6 children, you guys. So this is someone who was like determined. She always wanted to have a large family. That was my dream, Kristen. From the time I was a child, I wanted to have a big family. I remember being like 5 or 6 years old, being like, "Oh, can you marry a widow that comes with 12 kids? Because that would be like,
Oh my goodness.
that's what I thought I wanted at the time." And watching like Sound of Music and that sort of thing. But I love kids, and so does Kristen, and so that was her dream. And even though she was in chronic pain, you guys, that was a dream she wasn't going to give up on. And so she continued to have babies. She continued to have a second and a third, and then a miscarriage. And then she realized her progesterone was shot and her body was not being able to produce it for the pregnancy, which is why they lost the baby. And so with number 4 and 5, you needed progesterone just to carry those babies. And were those shots you were taking or like a supplement?
Yeah. Yeah. So for both pregnancies, it was twice a week injections. And what they do
Twice.
is yeah, twice a week injections. And I just a couple months ago got you get like lumps that will stay under your skin, and they're like painful lumps that are just like there and not going away. And I finally, with the help of a really good massage therapist, was able to clear those out. But like, it leaves you with this, like, they're awful. Let's just leave it at that. And when you have to get your blood redrawn to make sure your dosage is correct, so every month they recheck it, and you have to go for a day of no progesterone in order to make sure that like the progesterone you're taking doesn't throw off the results, and they get an accurate reading of what your body is producing. And so every time I had to do that, I would get like massive flurries of contractions. Like my body would immediately try to go into this like miscarriage mode, was what it felt like, because I have to go 24 hours without it in my system. And I'm like, well, I'm going to lose the baby just like trying to get the blood draw. And then I'd like rush home after the blood draw and like try to do an injection right away, so that just to stop those contractions, because my body would immediately go into contracting with both of those pregnancies.
You guys. So this is the piece we want you to hear here. She's taking this for her back pain. And activation is so much more than just one thing. It's going to the cells and it's fixing the body and it's your body doing it. So here she is needing 2 shots of progesterone a week to have her babies number 4 and 5. Fast forward, she conceives number 6 after being activated for over a year. And that pregnancy, you didn't need any progesterone at all.
Right. So they started me on a low dose of oral progesterone as a precaution while sort of evaluating what am I going to need for this pregnancy, just to make sure I held on to it. And then my readings were fine and I didn't need it. And the
Ah,
other thing was I didn't continue to monitor it through the whole pregnancy because I wasn't contracting. Like the symptoms weren't there. Everything looked great. So yeah, I got to totally sidestep the progesterone, which I can't even tell you how amazing that is. Like it's a huge expense and it's also just so stressful and painful, you know?
whew. Okay, so we have her living pain-free after 14 years, having a pregnancy that she does not need progesterone for. Why? Because her body's making it again. This is the baby. This is the no progesterone baby. This is the little miracle. And she's perfect. And then one more incredible, amazing thing about this baby and this pregnancy, this is an activated baby born to an activated mother. And activated babies receive so many benefits because babies are born with over 287 trace toxins, trace chemicals inside of the umbilical cord already before they even enter the world. So having an activated mama preserves the baby. It's able to keep all those toxins not only away from mama, but away from the baby. And so also what Nerve 2 does, what activation does, is it recalibrates our genes. So even if there's a cancer gene, it won't have to express itself. It can actually be turned off. And so this little baby, all your babies were born with a genetic mutation. And those genetic mutations, the way you can tell they have a genetic mutation, it manifests, there's little telltale signs. But in Kristin's babies, they had severe tongue tie and severe lip tie. And what did that look like? So after they're born, they need to have it a little operation.
Right. So after my oldest couple of babies, that this was back when we didn't really think about, like, I don't know if there was just not knowledge about it or what, but they didn't check for it. And so I struggled to nurse all of my older kids. And so like they had symptoms, but they never had the diagnosis and the surgery. But then after this big gap where we had the miscarriage with my younger kids, they would check for it. And um so they would do, so you need to get the surgery done like as soon as possible. It's one of those things like you don't want to do this to your baby, but they struggle to nurse and there's other things going on with it, like they have tension in their whole body. They're usually very, very fussy. They hate to ride in the car because they're uncomfortable. They feel like, I've heard it said that in the car seat position, they feel like they can't breathe because not just it doesn't just affect the lip and tongue. It's the fascia through their whole body is so tight that it's like you're uncomfortable, like to be alive, to be in your body.
Oh, wow.
It's painful.
And it's so sad because they can't share that. They can't tell that to us, right?
Need body work afterwards, like craniosacral and chiropractic and things to help like all that fascia kind of relax. And so when I look back at like their baby pictures, they look like a board, especially my number 4. She just looks like she's stiff, like very stiff, like a ramrod.
Mm.
And you can tell she's in pain and they don't sleep well. They don't sleep hardly at all, really. And there's a lot more to it. And just the lip and tongue is just like tip of the iceberg, you know, and they're miserable. They're just miserable.
Oh my gosh. And so she was the first baby you ever had that was born without the lip or tongue tie.
Yeah. So 2 of my kids, I'm not sure because just diagnosis, we didn't for, to solidify that, to be able to say that for sure. But she's the first one who we are sure had, and especially after having those other 2 that were so miserable back to back. It's like a completely different, I mean, it is a
Experience.
completely different baby, but the experience, yeah, is completely different. She sleeps well, she's happy, she's relaxed. Like, it's just amazing to see like what a real like happy healthy baby is supposed to be like. And oh, and I forgot to mention the food sensitivities because when you have the ties it affects your stomach because there's tension in your stomach too, and so there's a lot more tendency to food sensitivities And we dealt with that. Like I had to be on a super careful diet when I was nursing them. And so I've been able to eat even dairy, which is to me mind boggling. A lot of moms have to do no dairy after giving birth if they're nursing. And I've been able to eat everything. Like she's completely fine. And it's hard to express like how huge and mind boggling that is until you've like lived it yourself.
Wow. Like, okay, that's and then there's another aspect to Kristen's activation story. So 14 years chronic pain, debilitating pain, to pain-free, to being able to exercise, to having her first pregnancy where she doesn't have to have progesterone injections after having that miscarriage with your after your third. And that was twice a week. That's crazy. And then this is the first baby without those genetic mutations, without the lip tie, the tongue tie, all tied into activation and an activated mama. And then tell us about like you have children with allergies.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have all of my kids have had some kind of sensitivity. Some were very extreme. Some had like this laundry list a mile long. My oldest especially had we had a really expensive blood test done where they tested like over 400 foods to see what they're sensitive to that they need to avoid. And she was allergic to over 100 of them.
Oh,
And like ridiculous things. Like some of it was obvious stuff like, okay, if you have food sensitivities, you probably have issues with dairy and gluten. And she had that, but it was also things like ginger and garlic and like, how are you allergic to carrots and peppers and just little things that you wouldn't expect that like essentially every meal was making her sick. And so and my third oldest is the same way. She was everything would make her sick. And then my second oldest had some dairy sensitivity, and then my two, number four and number five, the tongue tied ones, they had a ton of things, but especially dairy, like super crazy dairy sensitive. And so I ended up putting them all on the activated collagen like 6 months ago, and I was like, let's try this because we were doing a lot of work on gut health, like we were doing bone broth and just avoiding avoiding genetically modified corn, which is really hard. That's its own. We could do an interview on just genetically modified corn. Like it's in
let's do that.
everything. It's in everything, and it makes the what's in it is they've injected a gene that makes insect stomach explode. And so there's no surprise that all the kids like these gut issues in our children's generation, like they're so rampant, and it's because of things like that. There's corn in everything, corn syrup, corn oil, whatever, corn solids. There's so many. It's impossible to get away from unless you scratch cook everything, which we try to do now, and it leads to stomach issues. And I mean, there's a lot more to that, of course. But so I put them all on the collagen, and I was basically rationing it out so that they could all have like a smaller dose because that's a lot of collagen. And within 2 weeks, my oldest comes up to me and is like, I'm not as sensitive to things anymore. Like I'm already noticing like I've accidentally ate this or that thing and I didn't get sick. And some of her sensitivities were like getting close to being anaphylactic. And it's just very scary. They were getting really scary. And they all, even those are almost completely gone. So it's only been a few months. And so everyone's sensitivities are gone 100%, except for two of them. The two who were the worst, they're like 90%. And so I'm like, well, just a few more months of collagen and we just knock this out and never have to think about it again. Hopefully, that's the goal.
And can you imagine not being able to eat things like ginger and garlic that are so good for
Yeah.
you? They're like antibacterial and, anti-inflammatory, and you can't
Right.
eat them.
Also, just like you cook from scratch and you're like, what are you going to do? Be like, oh, I'll put the ginger and the garlic on the side and the sesame oil and with the carrots. Like, you just have to cook completely different meals at that point. And they were doing digestive enzymes, but you can't overdo it on those. It's not good for you. Um, and so it's a pickle. Like, how do you send your kid off to college and into the world? How are they going to survive if everything makes them sick? So at this point, it's just non-organic soy makes my oldest nauseous, and my third oldest, it's a little bit on like eggs, and that's it. We're done.
Wow. So, you know what's interesting too? And for everyone listening, like half the population today is born with a genetic mutation. And Kristen, your older kids probably have it too. Whether you notice or not, they had the lip tongue tie because when you have genetic mutations, you can't methylate all the poisons, all the toxins, and the root cause of disease is just toxic exposure, right? Aging, oxidative stress, right?
Right.
Mitochondrial dysfunction, all those things that are metabolic health, right? And it sounds like they have those because they're not able to deal with this hijacked environment as well as some other people do. So it's not that those things aren't bad for us, it's just some bodies are stronger about getting the poisons
Right.
out and dealing with it
Right.
than others. And so you guys, that Kristen's story is fascinating. Please leave it in the comments if you cried. This mama is so resilient. I want you to know that there's answers out there. Like, I can't tell you what this is going to do for you, but I can show you the science. I can show you the root cause. I can show you, like, we're just working with the systems in your body. And when we get those systems working properly, your miracle body is going to do its thing. So, this baby is a perfect example. All of you, many of you are parents, mamas, dads. You've had a baby, right? So just think about it like this. Your body created, or your wife's body created, or together from two cells, like in 9, 10 months, a perfect baby. Beautiful baby with all their organs, everything intact. We made that. And then just the placenta they come in has these incredible stem cells that could cure cancer, right? The body made that. And then it goes on to make breast milk, which is light years beyond any supplemented formula you could give a baby, even if it was like goat milk based and nutrient enriched and it was organic and really, really awesome, it would blush in comparison to what the body can create. So when we talk about activation, this is why I'm so passionate about it. It's not a supplement. It's little herbs that turn on the healing pathways in your body, right? So when you turn on those healing pathways in your body, your body's going to do what it needs to do for the next step. The other thing I wanted to do is invite you to share this with us because we don't have enough people sharing activation with the world. This is like the biggest kept secret and it goes and it well, Kristen, how much like it saved you so much money activating, like not
True.
just saved your
That's true.
family's health and brought you back, but it actually ends up saving
Mhm.
a lot of money because you're not chasing a diagnosis. You're not chasing like,
Right.
what am I allergic to? I need to do a hair sample of this and I need to do this and
Right.
work with this functional medicine doctor to
Yeah.
figure this all
Or
out.
taking a mountain of supplements that will stop working as soon as you stop taking them and then don't work nearly as well. Like it was tiny, tiny fraction of what activation did for us.
Oh my gosh, I love your story. I know you need to get going with the babies, but that was so awesome, Kristen. I'm going to stop the interview and just thank you so much for being on with me today. And if you guys are curious about Kristen's story, just reach out to her. She'll share it with you. Any questions about activation, our inbox is open. Like you deserve to live like with vitality, with health, with excitement. And if you're thinking about people in your life that need to hear this, then also talk to us about what this opportunity to work from home or work from anywhere looks like because it's blessed my life as much as like activation has blessed our family, just sharing the gift with others, the community we created, and then of course the time freedom and the financial freedom that it's blessed our family with is just it's a win-win-win-win-win all the way around. All right,
Yeah.
guys. Kristen, thank you so much. I love you, girl.
Thanks, Andrea.